Lingering on my tongue, the metallic tang of blood from the fatal crash faded the moment my eyes snapped open to a blaring alarm clock. October 4th, the day of the final interview, glared back at me from the calendar. Rather than meeting my end, I had somehow been given a do-over. Armed with this second chance, I knew exactly who the traitors were this time around. The last memory I had of my previous life was the blinding glare of headlights slicing through the torrential rain, followed by the sickening crunch of metal against bone. I had been standing on the corner of 5th and Madison, clutching a drenched, crumpled stack of printed emails. They were the undeniable proof that my fiancé, Liam Carter, had been sleeping with my best friend and corporate rival, Chloe Jenkins, for over a year. Worse than the infidelity was the professional betrayal. Those emails proved that Liam, a senior HR coordinator at our firm, had helped Chloe sabotage my career. 4 years ago, on the day of the most critical exam and interview of our lives for the coveted executive director position at the prestigious Harrison & Cole Financial Group, Chloe had stolen my boarding pass for the exclusive VIP candidate bus. She had left me stranded at the terminal with a ticket for the wrong bus, causing me to miss the interview entirely. She got the 6-figure job, the corner office, and eventually the man I was supposed to marry. I got a life of misery, working dead-end temp jobs until the day I uncovered their plot and was subsequently run off the road by a panicked, speeding driver as I rushed to confront them. But now I was staring at the popcorn ceiling of my old apartment. I gasped, my lungs inflating as if breaking the surface of a frozen lake. I threw off the duvet and stumbled out of bed, my knees weak, my skin covered in a cold sweat. I braced my hands against the bathroom sink and stared into the mirror. The scar on my chin from a childhood bike accident was there, but the dark circles of years of depression were gone. My face was youthful, flush with life. I grabbed my iPhone from the nightstand. The screen lit up with the date. Friday, the 4th of October, 2019, 6 a.m. My breath hitched. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I wasn't dead. The universe, in some inexplicable twist of fate, had violently shoved me back in time, back to the exact morning my life had been destroyed, back to the day of the Harrison and Cole final selection. A surge of adrenaline hit my bloodstream, so potent it made my vision blur. I wasn't just reborn, I was armed with a furious, cold-blooded clarity. In my past life, I had been naive, trusting, and fiercely loyal to a fault. I had believed Liam when he told me he was working late. I had believed Chloe when she called me her work sister. I had believed the universe was fair. Not anymore. By 6:45 a.m., I was showered and dressed in my sharpest charcoal blazer. I applied my makeup with mechanical precision, red lipstick, no more playing the soft, approachable girl next door. As I packed my leather briefcase, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. Liam, morning babe, so proud of you today. See you at the transit center. You're going to crush this interview. Love you. A wave of nausea washed over me, immediately followed by a dark, simmering rage. I typed back, forcing my fingers to remain steady. Abigail, thanks Liam. I couldn't do this without you. See you soon. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. The crisp autumn air of Chicago hit my face, but I barely felt the cold. My mind was already a dozen steps ahead, playing out the intricate chessboard of the day. The final stage of the Harrison and Cole recruitment wasn't just a standard boardroom interview. It was a legendary, grueling simulation. Out of 200 applicants, only Chloe and I had made it to the final day. We were instructed to arrive at the downtown private charter terminal, where we would each be given a sealed envelope containing a bus ticket. One ticket was for the Gold Charter, a luxury bus that drove directly to the corporate headquarters where the board of directors waited. The other ticket was a dud, an assigned seat on a dilapidated commuter bus headed for a remote industrial processing plant on the outskirts of the city. In my previous life, we were told it was a lottery system to test how we handled unexpected adversity. I had drawn the Gold Charter ticket, but at the station, Chloe had spilled her coffee, created a massive, tearful scene, and in the confusion, she had swapped our envelopes. I ended up on the wrong bus, riding 3 hours into the Rust Belt of the state, while she arrived at HQ, charmed the board, and secured her future. What I learned years later, the secret Liam had drunkenly confessed in an email to Chloe that I had printed out moments before my death, was that the bus assignment wasn't a lottery at all. Liam had rigged the envelopes. He had secretly marked the gold charter envelope with a microscopic pin dot so Chloe would know which one to grab. But there was a second, deeper secret I had learned during my years of obsessive, depressive research into Harrison and Cole after they rejected me. The CEO, Richard Hughes, was a notoriously eccentric billionaire who despised corporate sycophants. The gold charter bus wasn't a reward, it was a psychological trap. In my past life, Chloe had only survived the trap and gotten the job because Liam had illegally stolen the CEO's secret assessment rubric and coached her on exactly how to act, what to say, and who to manipulate upon arriving at HQ. This time, I was going to rewrite the script. The night before, technically, 30 minutes ago, immediately after waking up from my death, I had logged onto a secure VPN and sent an anonymous, highly detailed tip directly to Richard Hughes's private executive email. I informed him that an HR coordinator named Liam Carter had leaked the Gold Charter assessment rubric to candidate Chloe Jenkins. The board would be waiting for her, all right, but it wouldn't be to hire her. It would be an ambush. And as for me, I was going to gladly, willingly take the wrong bus. The downtown charter terminal was bustling with morning commuters, the air thick with the smell of roasted coffee, diesel fumes, and damp raincoats. I walked through the sliding glass doors and immediately spotted them standing near the ticketing kiosks. Chloe looked flawless, dressed in a pristine white trench coat, her blonde hair perfectly blown out. Next to her was Liam, handsome in his tailored navy suit, holding 2 cups of Starbucks lattes. They were laughing together, a little too closely. Seeing them in person, breathing and smiling after the agony they had put me through in my past life, required every ounce of willpower I possessed not to march over and slap them both across the face. Instead, I took a deep breath, plastered a bright, oblivious smile on my face, and approached. "Abby!" Chloe shrieked, rushing forward to wrap her arms around me. Her perfume, a sickly sweet floral scent, invaded my senses. "Oh my God, look at you! You look so professional." "I'm so nervous I could throw up." "You look great, Chloe," I said smoothly, stepping out of the embrace just a fraction of a second early. Liam stepped up and kissed my cheek. "Hey, babe, big day. You ready?" "More than you know," I replied, holding his gaze just long enough to see a flicker of unease cross his pupils before he looked away. "Okay, girls, HR just dropped off the assignments at the concierge desk," Liam said, checking his watch. His voice carried that fake, enthusiastic corporate pitch. I'm not supposed to be fraternizing with candidates, but I pulled some strings to be the one to hand them over. "Here." He reached into his leather messenger bag and pulled out 2 thick, cream-colored envelopes, both sealed with the Harrison and Cole wax stamp. He held them out. I looked closely. There it was. On the bottom left corner of the envelope in his right hand, there was a tiny, almost invisible speck of blue ink, the gold charter ticket. "Who goes first?" Chloe asked, clasping her hands together in mock anxiety. "Oh, Abby, you pick. I'm too stressed. Leave it to fate." "Are you sure?" I asked, feigning hesitation. "Positive!" Chloe beamed, though her eyes were laser-focused on Liam's hands. I reached out and grabbed the envelope in Liam's left hand, the blank one. The ticket for the industrial commuter bus. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Liam's shoulders drop in a microscopic sigh of relief, and Chloe's lips twitch into a victorious smirk. But she couldn't let it be that easy. She needed to play her part to perfection. "Wait, let's open them together," Chloe said, practically vibrating with excitement. We tore the wax seals. I pulled out a rigid piece of cardstock. It was gray, with bold black letters, Route 44, Destination, Apex Industrial Facility, Departure, Bay 12. Chloe pulled hers out. It was a gleaming gold ticket. Gold Charter, Destination, Harrison and Cole HQ. Departure via plunge. Oh my gosh, Chloe gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. Abby, I got the gold charter. Oh, no, wait, where are you going? Route 44? She looked at my ticket, her face contorting into a mask of exaggerated pity. Abby, that's the dud bus. It goes out to that awful processing plant in the middle of nowhere. It's supposed to be a stress test, just to see if you'll quit on the spot. Wow, Liam added, rubbing the back of his neck, playing the sympathetic boyfriend flawlessly. That's rough, Abby. I'm so sorry. It's totally random, you know. It's fine, I said, keeping my voice soft, letting a hint of fake disappointment leak into my tone. A test is a test. I'll make the best of it. Are you sure you don't want to trade? Chloe offered, a sickly sweet lie sliding off her tongue. We both knew the rules strictly forbade trading, and we both knew she would rather die than actually swap. No, Chloe, I smiled, looking her dead in the eye. You earned that seat. You take it. I belong on Route 44. You are so strong, Abby, she said, hugging me again. Over her shoulder, I saw Liam smiling at her, a secret, intimate smile that confirmed everything. Boarding for Gold Charter. Please proceed to the VIP lounge. A digitized voice echoed over the PA system. That's me, Chloe squealed. She grabbed her designer bag. Good luck on the local bus, Abby. I'll text you later. I watched her strut away, Liam walking closely beside her to escort her to the lounge. They thought they had won. They thought they had orchestrated the perfect crime against my career and my life. But as I turned on my heel and walked toward the dingy, dimly lit Bay 12, a genuine smile finally broke across my face. The air at Bay 12 smelled of burnt rubber and stale cigarettes. The bus waiting there was a rusting, 20-year-old gray monolith with a coughing exhaust pipe. The driver, an older man with a scruffy beard and a faded baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, was leaning against the door, smoking a cigarette. Route 44? I asked, holding up my gray card. He didn't say a word, just nodded and gestured for me to get on. I stepped onto the bus. It was completely empty. The seats were worn, green vinyl patched with duct tape. The heating system hissed loudly, struggling to fight off the October chill. I walked to the middle of the bus, took a window seat, and placed my briefcase neatly on my lap. As the engine roared to a deafening start, my phone buzzed. A notification popped up from an anonymous news alert I had set up years ago. Breaking. Unannounced structural emergency at Apex Industrial Facility. Harrison and Cole executives reportedly on site. I locked my phone and leaned my head against the vibrating glass window as the bus lurched out of the terminal. In my past life, I had thought the interview was about sitting in a shiny boardroom and answering corporate trivia. I had thought Chloe was riding off into the sunset. But I knew the truth now. Richard Hughes, the eccentric billionaire CEO, wasn't at the corporate headquarters today. He had secretly dressed down, posing as a frantic plant manager at the Apex facility, waiting to see which candidate would show up in the mud and the grime to actually solve a crisis. Chloe was on her way to a velvet-lined trap, walking blindly into a boardroom of angry directors who had just received undeniable proof that she was a cheating, manipulative fraud. And I was on the wrong bus, heading straight toward the real interview. The game had just begun, and this time, I was the one writing the rules. The 3-hour ride to the Apex Industrial Facility was a bone-rattling journey through torrential rain and desolate highway stretches. When the rusty Route 44 bus finally hissed to a halt, the doors squealed open to reveal a scene of absolute chaos. Apex wasn't just a processing plant. It was Harrison and Cole's primary logistical hub for high-value tech components. And today, it was quite literally sinking in the mud. A flash flood had compromised the structural integrity of Loading Dock 4, severing the power grid to the temperature-controlled storage units. Millions of dollars in volatile, temperature-sensitive microprocessors were ticking closer to ruin with every passing minute. I stepped off the bus, the heels of my polished pump sinking instantly into an inch of gray sludge. The freezing rain whipped against my charcoal blazer, but I didn't flinch. In my past life, I had read the devastating post-mortem report of this exact day. Because I had missed this bus, no executive candidate had arrived to manage the disaster. The plant had lost $30 million in ruined inventory, and Harrison and Cole's stock had plummeted by 6% by the opening bell on Monday. I knew the exact failure points. I knew the exact solutions. Sirens blared in the distance as I ducked under yellow caution tape and strode toward the main command tent, where a group of men in hard hats and high-visibility vests were shouting over walkie-talkies. "We need backup generators from the Westville depot immediately," yelled a gruff, silver-haired man in a mud-splattered jacket. His safety helmet was tilted back, revealing a face deeply lined with stress. His name tag read Frank, Floor Manager, but I knew exactly who he was. Despite the dirt on his face and the panic strain in his voice, those sharp, calculating blue eyes belonged to Richard Hughes, the billionaire CEO of Harrison and Cole. "Westville is flooded out, Frank," another worker, a younger guy named Thomas Bradley, yelled back. "The roads are washed away. We've got 45 minutes before the thermal shielding drops, and we lose the entire shipment." "Then get a helicopter! Call corporate!" Richard roared, playing the part of the desperate blue-collar manager flawlessly. "Corporate put us on hold," Thomas cried. "They're busy with the executive VIP interviews." I didn't wait for an invitation. I stepped straight into the center of the tent, slamming my leather briefcase onto the makeshift folding table. The sharp crack echoed over the roar of the rain, instantly silencing the men. "Corporate isn't coming," I said, my voice cutting through the damp air like a freshly sharpened blade. "But I am here. Thomas, cancel the Westville request. It's a dead end. You need to reroute the Freon supply from the secondary cooling towers in Sector B and pipe it directly into the storage units. It will buy you 3 hours." Richard Frank turned to stare at me, his eyes narrowing. "Who the hell are you? A corporate suit? You can't just cannibalize Sector B. That runs the main assembly line." "The assembly line is producing low-yield consumer electronics with a profit margin of 4%, I snapped back, meeting the billionaire's gaze without a shred of intimidation. Doc 4 is holding military-grade microprocessors that represent $30 million in sunk costs and a guaranteed breach of a federal contract if they fry. Shut down Sector B. Now." Thomas looked frantically between me and Frank. She's right, but we don't have the authorization to shut down the main line." "You do now," I said. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out my Harrison and Cole candidate badge, and slapped it on the table. "I am Abigail Foster, Executive Director candidate. I am assuming emergency operational control of this facility under Protocol 7, Delta." Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Protocol 7, Delta? That's for catastrophic infrastructural failure. Look outside, Frank. The dock is sinking," I replied coldly. "Thomas, get your men on the valves in Sector B. Frank, I need you to pull the manifest for all outbound freight trucks currently trapped in the staging area. We are going to pack the microprocessors into the empty refrigerated food transport trucks stuck at the gate. We don't need to fix the power. We just need to get the inventory on ice and on the road." For a split second, the frantic, panic facade of the floor manager melted away, and a glimmer of sheer, unadulterated predatory respect flashed in Richard Hughes's eyes. "You heard the woman," Richard barked, dropping the act entirely. His voice suddenly possessed the booming resonance of a CEO who commanded boardrooms across the globe. "Move!" For the next 2 hours, I stood in the freezing mud, directing the chaotic ballet of forklifts, screaming orders over the howling wind, and systematically saving the company $30 million. My blazer was ruined, my hair was plastered to my face, and my hands were numb, but my mind had never been sharper. When the last refrigerated truck roared out of the gates, successfully securing the cargo, a heavy, exhausted silence fell over the command tent. I was wiping axle grease off my hands with a rough paper towel when Richard walked in. He had taken off the hard hat and the muddy jacket, revealing a bespoke Italian sweater underneath. The transformation was startling. "Protocol 7, Delta," he said quietly, crossing his arms. "Not many candidates bother reading the crisis manual. They usually focus on the quarterly earnings. Quarterly earnings are a byproduct of survival, Mr. Hughes," I said, tossing the paper towel into a bin. He smiled. It was a terrifying, brilliant smile. "You know who I am." "I do, and I know why you set up this test," I said, looking him dead in the eye. You don't want a diplomat in the corner office. You want a wartime general. Someone willing to get their hands dirty while the rest of the executives are drinking champagne in the VIP lounge. Richard chuckled, a deep rumbling sound. Indeed. Speaking of the VIP lounge, I received a very disturbing, anonymous tip this morning regarding the candidate who drew the gold charter ticket, a Miss Chloe Jenkins. Apparently, she had a little help cheating her way to the top. Is that so? I kept my face utterly blank. My chief operations officer, Diana Mitchell, is currently handling her, Richard said, checking his Rolex. But I think it's time I made a personal appearance. Miss Foster, my private helicopter is waiting on the roof of the administrative building. Would you care to join me for the second half of your interview? I would love nothing more. The contrast between the muddy hellscape of Apex and the pristine glass-walled boardroom on the 50th floor of Harrison and Cole HQ was blinding. When the mahogany door swung open, the scene inside was a masterpiece of corporate carnage. Chloe was sitting at the end of the massive glass table, pale as a ghost, her perfect blowout frizzed with nervous sweat. Standing against the wall was Liam, looking like a man facing a firing squad. Pacing at the head of the table was Diana Mitchell, the legendary ruthless COO, holding a thick stack of printed network logs. You accessed the executive server at 2 a.m. on Wednesday, Diana was saying, her voice a lethal whisper, glaring at Liam. You downloaded the CEO's behavioral assessment rubric. And then, she pivoted sharply to Chloe, you sat in my lounge for the last 3 hours, regurgitating the exact psychological triggers you memorized from that stolen document. Chloe was hyperventilating. No, Diana, I swear, I didn't know. Silence, Richard Hughes boomed, stepping into the boardroom. The entire room froze. Chloe's eyes widened in terror. Liam's jaw dropped, but it wasn't the CEO's presence that paralyzed them. It was me. I stepped out from behind Richard's towering frame. I was entirely covered in dried gray mud. My blazer was torn at the shoulder. My hair was a tangled mess, and I was missing a heel on my left shoe, forcing me to stand with a slight predatory tilt. I looked like I had just walked out of a war zone. Abby? Liam choked out, all the blood draining from his face. What are you doing here? I took the bus you gave me, Liam, I said, my voice echoing off the glass walls. I limped slowly toward the table, never breaking eye contact with him. It was quite the ride. Though I suspect you thought I'd still be stuck in a holding pen right now. Chloe leaped out of her chair, her mask of victimhood slipping into desperate malice. She did this! Abby tipped you off! She's jealous of me! She's always been jealous of me! Miss Jenkins, Richard said coldly, walking to the head of the table. Miss Foster has spent the last 3 hours single-handedly preventing a $30 million supply chain collapse at my Apex facility while you were sitting in this room, fraudulently drinking my sparkling water. Chloe staggered back as if physically struck. Apex? But that bus was a decoy. The gold charter was the decoy, Chloe, I said softly, coming to a halt directly across the table from her. It was a psychological trap designed to catch corporate sycophants. And you walked right into it, blindly guided by a man who couldn't even rig a game correctly. I turned my gaze to Liam. He was shaking, tears welling in his eyes. The handsome, charming man I was supposed to marry in my past life now looked like nothing more than a pathetic, cornered rat. Abby, please, Liam begged, stepping forward, his voice cracking. I didn't want to do this. She made me. Chloe manipulated me. I love you. We're getting married. I reached into the pocket of my ruined blazer and pulled out my diamond engagement ring. I slammed it down onto the glass table. The heavy clink resonated like a gunshot. You're fired, Liam, I said. Liam opened his mouth to speak, but Diana Mitchell cut him off. She doesn't have the authority to fire you, Mr. Carter, but I do. Security is waiting at your desk to escort you off the premises. The police have also been notified regarding your unauthorized access to secure company servers. That is a federal crime. Liam let out a pathetic sob and slumped against the glass wall, sliding down to the floor in defeat. Chloe, however, wasn't done. She turned to me, her face contorted with ugly, unrestrained fury. You think you've won? You think a little mud makes you an executive? You're nothing, Abby. You've always been nothing. I leaned over the table, bringing my face mere inches from hers. I could smell the sickly sweet floral perfume, the same scent that had haunted my final moments in my past life. But it didn't scare me anymore. It just smelled like cheap desperation. You're right, Chloe. I was nothing, I whispered, my voice dripping with venom. I was a loyal friend to a snake and a devoted fiancé to a coward. But I evolved. I took the seat you gave me. Now, I want you to watch very closely as I take the seat you thought was yours. I straightened up and looked at Richard Hughes. Mr. Hughes, I said clearly, I believe we have a final interview to conclude. Though, given the circumstances, I suggest we skip to the salary negotiations. Richard threw his head back and laughed, a loud, joyous sound that shattered the remaining tension in the room. He looked at Diana, who was already nodding with a grim, approving smile. Security, Richard called out to the guards waiting outside the glass doors. Remove Miss Jenkins and Mr. Carter. Ensure they never set foot in this building again. As the burly guards grabbed Chloe by the arms, she began to scream, thrashing wildly. No, this is my job. You set me up, Abby. You ruined my life. I stood in silence, watching them drag her and a weeping Liam out of the boardroom. The heavy mahogany doors clicked shut, sealing them out of my life forever. The phantom copper taste of blood that had lingered in my mouth since I woke up was finally gone. Well, Miss Foster, Richard said, gesturing to the luxurious leather chair at the center of the table, Chloe's empty seat. Please, sit down. Let's talk about your future. I looked down at the mud caked on my skirt, then at the pristine, untouched leather of the executive director's chair. I smiled, pulled the chair out, and sat down. In my past life, they took everything from me. But reborn from the wreckage, I didn't just take my life back. I took the empire. Did Abby's ruthless revenge satisfy your craving for karma, or did she go too far? What would you do if you were reborn on the day of your ultimate betrayal? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you love this story of corporate betrayal, time travel twists, and absolute savage payback, smash that like button, share this with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insane real-life drama stories every single week.